Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Nene's Crafting Corner and I'm Nene. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by and I can't wait to get to know you better. If you are returning, welcome back. You've been missed. I apologize for any dog noises in the background. They are on the bed with me and I am doing this voiceover. I'm trying a new form for videos that has been inspired by all the podcasts I've been listening to. I've pre-recorded videos and I am doing a voiceover with a quote-unquote script I have written beforehand. I'm hoping to eliminate those pesky ums and uhs throughout my videos that just drive me bonkers. I know it's a more natural flow to things to do it the way I have been doing it, but it bothers me, so here we are. I am also going to try to slow down my speech. I've been told I speak too quickly in real life situations, particularly when I'm leaving voicemails at work for people to call us back and reschedule delivery of freight. So this is my way of improving that. I will still be updating you on the goings-on around here in my little corner of the world. After the update, I'm going to talk about a person or topic in history. I will talk about true crime stories, particularly serial killers, or my morbid fascination with Anne Frank and the Nazi regime. Side note, I am against Nazism in all its forms. I've just been so dumbfounded and awestruck by the whole Holocaust and I can't seem to learn enough about it, and I would love to share that information with you. I'll also be delving into British history that I also find so fascinating, the Tudors especially, so Henry VII, Henry VIII, his 6 wives, and his 3 children, or just European history in general. I might even delve into Egyptian history and Greek mythology. I find it all so fascinating. I will randomly pick a topic, do some research, and talk about it or them in my videos. But for now, let's just get into the last couple of weeks' shenanigans. So by now, we all know that I work Monday through Friday. No need to mention that for every day. The only real highlights for the last couple of weeks have been taking the dogs on a couple of walks, and Navi is more or less getting used to the leash. We had to buy her a new harness because she chewed the clip on her other one and rendered it useless. I'm pretty sure she planned that. She likes the new one much better, and I am learning to keep things out of her reach. I have been very spoiled with our 2 boys that only ever really got into the trash. And unfortunately, Blue has taught her that nasty trick. Navi likes to walk a few steps and then plop down in the lay position, so our walks take twice as long to get around the block. Thankfully, Blue likes to mark everywhere, so he doesn't mind the delays. On Saturday, the 1st of July, we went to the zoo with Tim's family, and his sister was running at least an hour late. I, along with the other siblings, were super annoyed. We ended up staying there way later than we meant to, we being Tim and I, and didn't see much of the zoo. That was because his dad wanted to do the dog show that they do now instead of the bird show. He had to leave early to go to work, so we only saw elephants, giraffes, zebras, and some monkeys. We left because we were going to Heber City to spend time with his aunts and uncles, and I didn't want to drive an hour up there to only spend an hour or 2 with them and then come back home. And I was getting really hot. I don't care much for summer weather. So as it was, we didn't get home until 11 o'clock at night from Heber. Thankfully, our church doesn't start until 11:30, so we were able to sleep in a little bit. Don't come at me for hating summer. I'm a redhead naturally, and the sun and I have never really gotten along. I am so fair-skinned that I burn in the winter if I'm not careful. Monday wasn't anything special, other than I gave myself a fill and painted red and blue French tips on them. I did have to work. Well, Tim and I both had to work. Here in the U.S., if you're located elsewhere in the world, Tuesday, July 4th was our Independence Day and had the day off. However, since trucking almost never stops, I had to work on Monday. Thankfully, it was a slow day and I was able to get out at a decent hour. Speaking of the 4th of July, we spent the day with the kids, Christopher, Gabby, baby William, Kieran, Mikey, and their roommate Haley at a local carnival or fair. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between a carnival and a fair, but we had a lot of fun. William got to ride the merry-go-round, and he had a pickle for the first time. At least I think it was the first time. I've put some pictures in here for you to see. He liked it and didn't pull the pucker face most kids do when they taste pickles for the first time. Although Kieran and Gabby do love pickles, so maybe it's in his blood. After the carnival, we went to Kieran and Mikey's and had a barbecue with them. It was so nice to just sit back and relax and enjoy their company after another long day in the sun. Tim and I headed home after because the dogs needed to be fed and we had work in the morning, and I'm an old lady and need my sleep. And with it being Navi's first firework experience, I didn't want to come home to an utter mess of who knows what because the fireworks scared her. People had been lighting them off in the neighborhood all week, and the really big and loud ones make her jump and bark. So I was really nervous what the big, like, city fireworks were going to do. The rest of the week has been pretty much just work, eat, sleep, wash, rinse, repeat. Since Ray had the whole week off, Chantel and I have been staying late to help cover, and boy, will I be glad when she's back on Monday. I am exhausted. For date night on Tuesday the 11th, Tim and I went to a hot tub place. Now, I know this sounds super sketch, and believe me, I was skeptical. My brother had told Tim about this place months ago, where you can rent a private hot tub room by the hour. We even found out that they have one big enough for a group of 6 people. We found the place because my brother couldn't remember the name of the place. We found it while driving to a pizza place because I had a hankering for the Pie Pizza, which is a pizzeria here in Utah. It's totally in a sketchy neighborhood, but we went in and Tim asked a million questions, for which I am grateful because he is a bit of a freak about germs. Not necessarily about sharing food or drinks, but like housekeeping of hotels, public bathrooms, and the like. Turns out, this place constantly is checking the pH balance of their tubs and all kinds of crazy things to ensure that everything is clean and hygienic. Nobody has time to get no funky stuff going on anywhere. Am I right? It was nice to sit there and relax with him in the hot water with the jets on. You can even turn down the lights and make it all romantical. We had a nice peaceful time and enjoyed each other's company. I think we'll definitely do it again. But next time, I think we'll bring water. We were so hot and dehydrated when we left. I thought Tim might pass out. Not really, but it was pretty bad. We just didn't know beforehand that we could bring outside beverages in. Not much else happened until the 22nd. I got to watch William for a few hours so Christopher and Gabby could go to an adult birthday party for Kieran, Christopher's sister. Now, we were not invited, and that is completely okay because Tim and I don't drink, and it was at a bar. So I got to spend some one-on-one time with the little fart face. He's so giggly and smiley. He makes me so happy. I've put in some pictures from that night. Navi didn't like it when I held him. She got super jealous. Not to the point that she would hurt him or anything. She just barked at him and wagged her tail a lot. So I knew as long as her tail was wagging, we were good. That's pretty much it for the highlights of the last couple of weeks. Now, for the bit of history. I'm going to tell you about Anne Frank, or rather, more specifically, one of her helpers. Probably the most quote-unquote famous or well-known, Miep Geese. I love Miep's story. She has such humble beginnings and ends up in such an unlikely place and remained humble. She is one of my heroes, and she is just so classy to me. I first became interested in Anne Frank and/or World War II in 3rd grade. I know I've mentioned this before. It was a book by Lois Lowry called Number the Stars. That book sent me falling down a rabbit hole that I've never fully climbed out of, and I don't intend to anytime soon. Although this was before the internet, or at least the internet in every home. So my happy, nerdy heart spent a lot of time in the library, both school and public, devouring as much as I could stomach in each sitting about Nazis, Anne Frank, and the Holocaust. I was, and still am, so dumbstruck. I would ride my bike to the local library once a week during the summer, which doesn't sound like much of a feat, but it was. The public library near my parents' house is at the top of a super steep hill. I couldn't even tell you how steep. I just know that as a kid, I struggled to get up the hill on my bike. Pretty sure I'd die if I tried now. Once streaming became a thing, I also started devouring documentaries about the Holocaust. Again, as many as I could stomach. I've always felt such a pull to Anne, almost like we have a connection somehow. I don't know how to explain it other than being a connection of some sort. But back to Meep. I read her life story, and Frank remembered the story of the woman who helped to hide the Frank family. I don't know if it's technically an autobiography or not. Regardless, it is a great read, and I recommend it to everyone. Meep says in the prologue of her book that she is nothing special and that she never wanted special attention. She was only doing what was asked of her and what seemed necessary at the time. Such humble and simple words that hold so much power. Even now, almost 90 years after the end of the war, I feel they are still so inspiring. Meep was born in Vienna, Austria in 1909, and her real name is Hermione, how I'm choosing to say it, because it's spelled Hermine. And her last name, I'm going to butcher it, Santrausich. I don't know. It's Austrian, and I'm so sorry for butchering it. Meep was her nickname given to her by her adoptive family. She came to the Netherlands as a child as part of a program for sickly Austrian children after World War I. They were to be sent to the Netherlands to, quote unquote, to be fed and revitalized, as she puts it in her book. She was sent in December of 1920 at the age of 11. There's a sweet story that she tells of when she started school in the Netherlands and how she had to go to a younger class so she could learn Dutch. She mentions how so many of her classmates wanted to help, and they all reached out their hands to help guide her to where she needed to be, that she didn't know which ones to grab first. It reminds me that we can learn so much from kids if we just stop and listen or watch them interact with each other. There's no malice, no hate, no judgments, just genuine kindness and caring for a new friend. Something we as adults need to be better about. Most definitely myself included in that. Meep was only supposed to stay in the Netherlands for about 3 months. Her stay was extended for another 3 months as the doctors felt she was still too weak. The family she was staying with became her adoptive family. At least that is how she describes them. The boys in the family started saying that they had 2 sisters. Despite the family already being a family of 5 children, with 5 children of their own, they took Meep in, with the gracious attitude of, where 7 can eat, so can 8. She mentions that even as a child, she was encouraged to, or rather, it was a sense of quote-unquote duty, as she puts it, to be politically aware and to read the newspaper and discuss what she'd read. That is so interesting to me. Her 6-month stint in Amsterdam ended up being about 5 years. In 1925, her adopted parents took her back to Vienna to visit her blood relatives. Meep says that they felt like strangers to her, and her biological mother had an honest conversation about how she needed to stay in Amsterdam with her adoptive family. She's even quoted as saying she has become Dutch. Meep kept her in contact with them via letters back and forth and went back at the age of 22 to visit them, but she was still technically an Austrian and not a Dutch citizen. In 1933, she went to work for Otto Frank on a temporary basis. The normal office girl had become sick and would be out for several weeks. She was introduced to him through a neighbor that was a traveling saleswoman for the pectin company he worked for. If you don't know, pectin is what is or was used to make jams. I'm not sure if it is still used. I've never made jam from scratch. I didn't know what pectin was until I started learning about the Frank family and what Meep did for the company. This bit of her life, the start at the pectin company, was portrayed very well in the miniseries A Small Light that is on Hulu and Disney+. Day in and day out, Meep made different jams with different fruits so that she could be helpful to those that called in with complaints and questions. When the other office girl recovered and came back to work, they kept Meep on as well. Unlike the portrayal in A Small Light, Meep did not meet Jan in a bar. She met him several years before when they both were working at a textile company. He moved on to social work and she went to the pectin company. She describes him in the book as, quote, a very tall, well-dressed, highly appealing Dutchman, end quote, and, quote, most attractive. His thick, fair hair gleamed. His eyes were warm and full of light, end quote. Life in this little office was touched early by Nazism. The other office girl, only ever referred to as Miss Heel in Miep's book, became a member of the NSB, which was the Dutch equivalent of Hitler's National Socialists. After growing tired of hearing the Nazi dogma and racist comments, Miep confronted her, asking her if she knew their boss was a Jew. Miss Heel said she did, but claimed that he was a gentleman, implying that he was the exception. After this confrontation, politics were no longer discussed in front of her. At some point, it isn't ever specified, Miss Heel stopped coming to work. She sent a message to Mr. Krahler, who also worked with Otto and Miep, and then another one came from her doctor stating that due to mental illness, Miss Heel could not complete the work required of her at Travis and Company, which was the name of the Peckham business. Now, Mr. Krahler was not the real name. She's using the pseudonyms in her book that Anne uses in her diaries. And I believe Mr. Krahler was actually Mr. Kugler. I'm going to have to double check that, though. I am going to leave Miep's story here for now. It is amazing to me how much is needed to fill approximately 30 minutes of video. I've recorded and rewritten this video and script what feels like a million times, trying to get the script to be long enough to match up with the video. I'm thankful for trial and error. This is not a permanent change, at least for now. I'm just stretching my legs, so to speak. And as always, I am completely open to helpful, respectful input. If you liked this video, please be sure to hit the thumbs up and click the subscribe button and come join this crazy ride with me. Thanks, y'all, and have a great day. Bye.